Hello and welcome, and thank you so much for joining us here for this week's episode of Real Estate and the Economy This Week. My name is Jared Uraine with the 5 Diamond Group here at Vice Realty, and of course, the Blind Economist, Miguel Francis. How are you, sir?
I'm doing outstanding, my brother.
You like Miguel or Mike? Because I've just been calling you Miguel, man.
6 of one, half dozen the other. Yeah, Miguel, Michael,
Good.
Mike. Hey,
I just don't want to mess people's minds up that know you as Michael. So.
Everybody knows me as Michael. Yeah, but whatever works. You're a long-time friend, so you call me what you want. Kind of okay. Yeah.
Remember the days when you used to drive around in your BMW?
Yes, I had a BMW Z3 M-Class Roadster.
You know what's funny? I never seen you drive it.
Yeah, it was a very cool car. It had sort of a space. It wasn't space gray, but it was a very cool silver gray color. Very nice. Really wide tires. I loved that. Oh, it was a convertible.
Nice.
Yeah, and not that I ever did so, but imagine if I were traveling down the road at a $130, right? Not that I ever did so. I'm just saying this is in our imagination.
Right.
Yeah, and with the radio.
Come on, man. That's the past, man. Let it out.
With the radio extra loud, and that was a very cool car. I got a question for you, though. That car was a 5-speed. It was capable of going 165 to 175 if you remove the electronic regulator, right? On my vehicle, I think the regulator would only go to 155. Anyway, if I'm cruising, hypothetically, of course, if I'm cruising along the road, a clear, wide, empty road, well lit, let's say I'm going $150, right? And I'm in 5th gear. Just because I've slowed down to...
You mean you downshifted?
Yeah, to 4th gear. Yeah. Does that mean I've really... slowed down to a appropriate speed?
Well, hopefully you're not redlining those RPMs in 4th gear, but you can still maintain that same speed.
That car, it didn't redline till about 7,500 RPM, as I recall.
Sweet.
But anyway, yeah. You were still cruising pretty fast at 4th speed.
It just makes the gas pedal a lot more sensitive.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how the economy is decelerating. It's slowing down, but not nearly enough.
Downshifting?
Yeah, it's downshifting. It definitely is.
Getting ready for a turn? You gonna hit that apex and just punch right out of it?
It's got all traction control and everything, so I can hit those curves pretty fast.
I don't know. It sounded like you're getting set up for a turn here, man, in the economy.
Yeah.
Well, as we get started, this is the real estate in the economy this week. Again, my name is Jared, and we got the Blind Economist with us, and we are back in studio. Thank you for adjusting for last week's joyous experience that we had because it was such a holiday week. Everybody was out and about, so
right.
It's nice to be back. Nice to see you again, Mike.
Thank you.
We're going to start off with the economy and the economic calendar of what's going on this week, right?
Well, a little bit. I guess the big number to focus on is the CPI report is coming out Wednesday, and that's going to be the headline CPI, which is inflation, consumer price index, is going to be in the low 3s, which is fantastic. Right. Last month it was at 4%, 4.0. So the fact that it's going to come in at 3.1, 3.2, somewhere in that neighborhood, that's great. That means inflation's coming down. That's good. But we want to remember, and I sound like a parrot here, but that's not what the Federal Reserve focuses on. Mm-hmm. They remove food and energy because those figures are too volatile to do monetary policy with. And so they look at core CPI. And core CPI last month was at 5.3. It is expected to come down, but only to 5%. So we're back to the BMW, right? We're shifting down, but we've only shifted down to 5.0. That's what the market anticipates. That's what they're hoping for.
The strength of the economy is really being flexed at the moment. Like it's just showing how strong it is. Unemployment numbers came out last week. It affected mortgage rates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what really impacted mortgage rates last week was the ADP payroll numbers were extremely high, but unemployment numbers came out also. It was at 3.7 last month. It dropped to 3.6. So as we've said many times on this episode of the 5 Diamond Group, we live in a very tight employment environment, and that's keeping inflation up. It's putting a very strong upward pressure on inflation.
Yeah.
Not to mention wages. Wages came out last week at 4.6, up from 4.3. So wages are increasing. Pretty strong stuff. So we're looking at that. Hopefully, core CPI, Consumer Price Index. Let's just think real simple in terms of inflation that matters. That's the core CPI. Hopefully, that comes in at 5% or less, and hopefully, it's not more than 5. But the result is the Fed, without question, if it comes in at 5 or even 4.9, they're still going to raise the rate
2 more times at the very least.
At the very least, twice more. We're looking at July and September, and it's my belief July, September, November. So they're going to continue their march to get core inflation down, whether it's core CPI or core PCP, personal consumption expense. Those numbers need to come down, and the Federal Reserve's target is 2%.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we're talking 5.1%, then we're more than double the Fed's target. So the Fed's going to keep tightening its policy, increasing the Federal Reserve rate twice more, possibly 3 times more this year. That's going to impact mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are going to continue to go up.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's part of an issue. Which leads to my next thought, which is it better to buy or rent? What do you think, Jared?
Well, we are advocates of home ownership, and as much as we have always helped first-time home buyers as well as luxury market buyers, and real estate has always been, as they say, the foundation of some of the greatest wealth that's been made. Sometimes at the end of the day, it's about what the actual out-of-pocket expenses are for many.
Exactly. So nationwide, I find this a stunning number. It cost $1,173 a month, more a month, to buy a home than to rent. $1,173. Now that's apartments versus buying. Homeowners rent equivalent is not quite that high nationally. It's a little over $900, but that's still a lot of money nationally. So what's the average home going for here in Las Vegas
We're
right now?
at $440,000 this month.
$440,000. That's up. Last month, what was it?
It's actually slightly down from the last month, specifically $442. But our bottom out 4-month spread over December to March was $425. Okay. So we've rebounded from the peak last year at $445, and we're kind of made up half of that terrain back. But we're seeing the market basically kind of flatline again as rates are going to start ticking up. Right. And the summer is passing by. So I would fully expect home prices to either level or soften a little more. But it'll be dancing there in the low 400s.
Right. Let's say they're going to soften. So what I was hoping to do today is to help your viewers to determine whether or not for them is it better to buy or rent here in the Las Vegas area. In some areas, it makes no sense. In Houston, Texas, to purchase a home is $1,800 a month. To buy that, to rent that home is $1,800 cheaper a month. To buy that exact same property is $1,800 a month. I know I keep saying that number, but that's a huge number.
That is almost $2,000. That's almost a whole house payment right there.
It is. And so in Houston, it makes no sense. And there's about 10 markets in the United States that it makes more sense to rent because the spread is just way too high, the spread between renting and purchasing. And that's kind of what I wanted to discuss today. If you bought a home here in Las Vegas, what did you say it is, 440?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 440,000. I think the PIT on that, principal, interest, tax, and insurance, to purchase that property would be approximately a little over $2,700.
Full disclaimer, this is not a mortgage quote, and this is not official numbers.
Full
speculation, get a professional opinion.
Yeah.
But for the sake of conversation, how much?
I think it's about $2,750.
Okay.
Yeah, roughly in that neighborhood, principal, interest, tax, and insurance to purchase that house. Now, you wouldn't happen to know if the median price in Las Vegas is $440,000. Would you know the size of that property?
We're looking at around 1,700 square feet.
1,700.
3 bath.
Okay, 3.2, 1,700. All right. So here's a question. What would it cost to rent that property?
Here in Las Vegas, of course, it always depends on which part of town, but let's
Right.
just use the average number of about $2,000.
Right. I was looking at it with Dilcia, your person that works here with you at the Five Diamond Group. Those numbers were actually higher than 2,000. We struggled. We found one property way off by Fort Apache and something that was 1975, and everything else was way north of that. There was a property near Valley View in Oakey that they wanted 2,700. We were looking at Zillow.com. Everything was well north of 2,700 actually. So the thought process is, if you can purchase for an equivalent amount of what it would cost to rent that property, or even less, why would you not buy? You know, it does make sense to rent in different markets. Probably not Las Vegas though. And I did some math before we started. If you bought a house nationwide in the United States for $101,000, what do you think it would be worth in 2021, Jared?
Goodness. Here in Las Vegas for $100,000?
Well, nationwide, but you could
Nationwide?
say Las Vegas, yeah.
Yeah, because I did run those reports a few years ago,
Oh.
and that same house in 2021.
What would it be in 20? If you bought it for $101,000 in 1990, what would it be worth?
Yeah,
in
you're going to be right
2021?
around the $400,000 price point. 'cause
Right.
that's where we're at.
Nationally, it was
Yeah.
408.
Yeah.
And so that's a return of 7.17% return on investment, I
Every
think,
year.
somewhere in that
Okay.
neighborhood, north of 7. Now, you could have taken that same $101,000 and put it in the S&P 500. And by the way, that 7.17% return included the crash of '08. So let's put all that in our
Yeah, the
mind.
spike in the valley. Got it.
Right. But let's say you did it the S&P 500, you would have made a little more than 9% in your money, and that also includes the crash of 2008. However, that only works if you lived in your car, right? Because you got to live somewhere. So there is value. So if you bought that house in 1990, and let's say you only got 7.17%, all the way to 2021, you have to factor in that you lived there at the same time. There's a certain value to that. If you invested that same money in the stock market, you don't get to live in the stock market.
So that brings up a historical number that I have often used with my clients.
Right.
The national average of home appreciation over 95 years of data
Right.
is around 5%.
All right.
Just on average.
Sure.
Now you add the fact that it is a set price for the 30-year mortgage, and the fact that you're paying something over the course of time does build equity. And like you said, over the spread of time, you would have that 7%, assuming that it's paid for. What was the cost of getting there? Those are the rates that people pay for the mortgage to do that. And quite often it's more than the actual cost of $101,000, right? In that
Sure.
time, it was probably we're probably looking at about a 7 or 8% rate at that
Right,
time.
yeah.
And so you're looking at probably a good another $50,000, $60,000, let's say. And so the overall cost at the end of the day would be, you're still at the end of the day, even though you're paying a higher rate, it's a future benefit because it's building that overall goal at the end of the day.
Well, that in this country has been the single greatest wealth accumulator generationally, here in the United States. And the market is good. For example, going back to the S&P, from 1929 through 2023, it's averaged 10.23%, including the Great Depression and the Great Recession. So the market's good, but most people don't have the discipline to invest in the market on a regular basis using dollar cost averaging, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to pay a housing expense, that money's going out the door anyway. It's going out the door no matter what. You have to live somewhere.
That's exactly the point.
It makes more sense to buy a house.
And so if
you can.
And so if you're renting, and the point I think of this exercise is, if you are currently renting, where are you using your money to what benefit? And if you at least can let's say double down and and pay down your own mortgage and build up equity over time, that is like you said, money out the door already. Might as well do it for your own personal benefit. That's really kind of the reason why we advocate for home ownership in that sense.
And rent's another topic. Rent in all 50 states has gone up this year, in all 50 states. The $600 rent is no longer available nationwide.
Right.
Yeah. Under $1,000, 4 million of those units have come off the market over the last 30 days.
Man.
So rent is rising across the nation, and it's becoming more and more of a problem. There's an incredible housing shortage, period, in the United States, whether you're renting or buying. But unfortunately, rent leaves you with uncertain challenges in the future because there's less within your control when it comes to renting.
You're at the mercy of the market as well as the owners. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's an issue. Yeah, and let's say you're renting in a place and it's owned. You like the owners and everything. Well, that property could get sold to a different owner, and it's a new situation.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so it is, if you're able to make it happen, it is good to buy. But having said that,
under what circumstances should somebody rent?
Well, if you live in Houston, I would rent, because the spread there's $1,800. In other major metropolitan areas, you have to consider how much more is it, because if the spread is $1,800, if it costs you $1,800 more to rent that same house than it does to rent it, you can invest that $1,800 if you have the discipline, and it makes sense that way. If you don't have the discipline, if you can afford to pay the extra $1,800, then you better do that. But that would be the one circumstance. The one thing I do want to say about buying is complicated, and it's going to get more complicated.
It's going to get a little more expensive.
It's the mortgages are going up. There's an incredible. What's the inventory in Las Vegas right now?
We have 1.6 months of inventory.
Good grief, you're killing me. Really?
Yeah.
1.6?
Yeah, and in fact, that's been one of the topics that we were talking about. We have 3,000 units available as of the beginning of the month.
You're kidding.
And yeah, it's just been. So we went down from 1.9 from the previous month.
Wow. 1.6. For your viewers, that's an incredible shortage. A normal market is a 6-month supply.
Yeah. We're back to late 2022 numbers, and then obviously let me look at the number. Let me get the right number here. Sorry.
Here's what I like about when we do this. You look at all your notes, and I just...
You got it in your memory. Yeah, you're showing off, man. I get it.
I'm just having a good time. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
At your expense. Sorry. Sorry. This is Jared Uraine's the 5 Diamond Group episode. It's all about him. Sorry about that.
Not even, man. Yeah, so we're back to, as far as the inventory numbers, back to what we were in 2021.
Yeah.
And if we continue down this trend, especially for the last 6 months of this year, if we don't get any more inventory, then we'll be out of stuff in about a month and a half.
Right.
That said, we are also seeing, as rates go up, less buyers, which is creating kind of this chain effect for sellers. So the real key factor is we know what is expected over the next few months. So if the thought of selling and buying is on the horizon, do it now. Get it out of the way so you can lock in the lower rate, and that becomes even more attractive next year.
And if you're confused, 7% is the lower rate.
You're right.
Yeah.
We just went over that.
Yeah, because moving forward, it's going to get more.
Yeah.
So I just want to state how it is getting more complicated. We have a short inventory here in Las Vegas. Interest rates are going up because the Federal Reserve is going to continue to tighten monetary policy. They're going to continue to hike the rate.
Yep.
Because inflation is not going away quickly enough. It's not decelerating. Ultimately, in the end, what that means is you need to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about. So they need to get a real estate professional who knows what they're doing. And here's the big one, somebody who does what they say they're going to do. Wow, that's tough to even find. Yeah. All they have to do is do what they said they were going to do. That would be great. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Anything else, Mike?
Yeah, like I said, keep an eye out for core CPI numbers on Wednesday. And then just a couple of things on Friday. Citigroup and JP Morgan Chase are going to report their earnings. That'll give us kind of a read on the giant, too big to fail institutions and see how they're doing. Probably pretty well. So we'll look for that.
Yeah, see what the fallout was from J.P. Morgan's acquisitions of those banks, right?
Yeah.
Or not fallout, more of like the improvements.
They're reaping, yeah.
Yeah.
And then also on Thursday we're looking for new unemployment claims. That's actually expected to drop just a hinge. So we're hoping the economy slows. We'll see. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that does it for this episode of Real Estate and the Economy this week. My name is Jared Uraine with the 5 Diamond Group here at Vice Realty. The Blind Economist, Miguel Francis, Michael A. Anthony Francis on LinkedIn, as well as the Blind Economist. If you typed it into Google, you'll find them in the top search results there. Michael, you've got your own YouTube channel. You want to plug that one?
Sure. The Blind Economist. Today we put out an episode about personal finance, how you can start a small business on a shoestring budget. On Thursdays, we do The Blind Economist Money Matters before the market opens, talking about this week's market news. And then we will be doing a Sunday morning program on interviews of people in different industries, different walks of life, literally from around the globe.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Please share, subscribe, ring the reminder button, and tune in to any of the social channels at 5 Diamond Group this week. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful day.